is we're a recruiting firm that specializes within the geospatial technologies. We recruit within GIS, surveying, LIDAR, photogrammetry, remote sensing, all related geosciences. And we recruit those people within multiple domains. So some, we work with a lot of commercial mapping companies. You'll see city and county positions posted on our website as well. But in addition, we work a lot with engineering companies, surveying companies, utilities, energy, the commercial sector in terms of like banks and insurance, and defense contractors, as well as software companies. So we work in almost the entire spectrum of what geospatial can do, and have grown into quite a force within the geospatial community. So that's why I was here today, and I just wanted to see if I could offer anything in terms of what your particular goals were. Just some little bit of oversight in terms of what we're seeing in the market in general, and that is that it's been very busy. There's always various sectors that are really hot. We're seeing a lot within software and a lot within utilities and defense right now. But that doesn't mean other sectors aren't just as busy. They just may be lacking the talent, and that's why they're calling recruiters. And generally, the Bureau of Land Statistics is telling us that cartographers is what they kind of lump us all into. And photogrammetrists, that's slated to grow about 19% in the next 10 years. So it's a real solid industry. It's not going anywhere. It's only getting bigger.
Is it just Colorado that you're doing?
No, we recruit nationally and sometimes internationally. So if you go to geosearch.com, you'll kind of see where our locations are, and it varies depending on what companies we're working with at any given time. But we work with people nationally.
Thanks. That was Jordan, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Should have said hello. Thank you.
I can see you. I don't know if I can see only you, Andrew, and Kirsten. So I don't know where everyone else is.
Yeah. So just as a programming note too, at the top of and it might be different for you, Jessica, if you're on your cell phone. There is a way to scroll through the participants.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can scroll. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say if anybody else has a question, feel free to drop in. If not, I have one I can ask.
Okay. And I have some things, to think about too in terms of your career. I don't know, where is everyone at in terms of their education in this group?
I thought this was all.
Are you just starting, or are you about to graduate?
So most of these students should be. Most of these students should be in a graduate program or a certificate program. But my perception is that 100% of them should have completed bachelor's degrees right now. So like Rodney just let us know is Bachelor of Science and work-related experience in GIS, and is now working on his graduate GIS degree.
Great. Okay.
I'm in my first year GIS grad student, going in my second quarter.
Okay, great.
I have a question. This is Jordan again, but certificate itself, I don't know if you know the program, but does that pretty much, would that be what you need to get your foot in the door? Because they also have a master's program at University of Denver.
Right. The GISP, is that what you're talking about?
Andrew, I don't know. What is it?
So if I understand your question correctly, Jordan, if you're getting your GIS certificate, is that a good way to get your foot in the door, or do you need to go full bore into a master's program?
Yeah, which is another 7 classes.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I think, they're just different in terms of what you're doing. But I think that a GISP definitely tells an employer, I know this set of skills. I have this set of skills, whatever they test you on within that particular certification. And there's GISP, and then the reason I differentiate it is there's a lot of different certificates you can get certified, especially within Esri. They have a million that you can do throughout your career. And what I think that it's really important to look at is, when you're planning for your career and you're kind of taking a look at the geospatial realm, because it does span so many avenues, you need to think about, do I want to use a particular skill set in my career? Like, am I really interested in analysis, or am I really interested in programming or something like that, where I don't really care what domain I'm in, but I want to be doing these things? Or am I just passionate about the domain? I really want to, I want to work within utilities, and or I would love to be an environmental, or I'm a defense, I'm from a defense background. I'd like to use mine in Homeland Security. Whatever the motivation is for you to be within the geospatial community, that can kind of lead you down different roads because different sectors require different things. So as you're looking at your career and you're looking at your courses and what do I plan for, I think if you can identify a little bit of where your interests lie there, you can find job descriptions of your future self, what you'd like to be doing, and kind of work backwards and say, okay, this is what I'm going to need to learn in order to be there.
Along those lines, Jessica, and it might depend on industry and the type of job, but we have a question from Rodney, who I believe is at work, and so can't turn his mic on. But he wants to know, what are the most important skills required now to work in the GIS industry? So in general, if there are some that kind of jump out to you when you're evaluating talent.
Well, across almost every sector, every domain within geospatial, I think what's coming up, and nobody likes to hear me say it, you know what I'm going to say, is programming skills.
I knew you were going to say that.
But it doesn't have to mean that you're going to be a programmer, and that's what I always like to stress to people. But they want to know that you can come in as, a GIS coordinator if you're going to be within local government, for instance, and you can come in and you'll be able to configure the domain to be effective for what you're trying to do. Or if so that when you're a GIS coordinator and the roads department's talking to you, or the parks department's talking to you, you can configure that for whatever use you need. So it's not like you're developing all day in most jobs, unless you want to take that route. But Python, scripting, and Java. Those are what you're going to hear all the time.
Oh my gosh.
That, and also, so those are the technical skills. Obviously Esri products are probably the most widespread, but if you can get your hands on, some AutoCAD and, MicroStation, those kinds of things that translate well into engineering or surveying, you can make yourself useful in those types of companies in a lot of different ways, and avoid being kind of pigeonholed to one place. And then also communication skills, if that's a talent of yours, writing and speaking and being able to present can make you a project manager or an account manager candidate. So there's lots of different ways to take it.
So Jessica, I had a question for you. My name's Sterling, by the way.
See if I can find you.
What
Yep.
do you think is the most important credential that your clients want to see on a resume? Is it a number of years of experience in the industry? Is it a GISP? Is it a master's degree? What's the most valuable?
Education is definitely valuable. So I would say that's probably the top. And when you're first coming out of school, it is some of those technical skills is what's going to set you apart. So any kind of hands-on work you can get your hands on in terms of an internship or volunteer work with the actual technology is going to help you a lot. So I think that, you know, somebody with a really solid degree and a good internship who has already done a little bit is going to be desirable.
Okay.
Over somebody that's got a bachelor's or even a bachelor's with a certificate, but has never even touched it in a commercial, you know, in any kind of work environment. And I know that's
Sure.
It's the old chicken before the egg, but hopefully you can get hooked up with something like that within either your college or your community organizations and stuff.
Right. Okay. Because I see a lot on job postings where some postings require a GISP certificate and some don't. So it's kind of like, well, should I go for the GISP or should I not? I guess it's up to the industry. But I'm kind
of. What sector, do you have a particular domain that you're interested in?
Right now I work in environmental.
Okay.
So that's the most interesting domain to me. And I don't have a GISP, but I'm thinking about getting one. So I was just kind of wondering what the...
Yeah, because you're going to see it a lot more probably within that sector because you're looking at a lot of government agencies. And I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that a lot of government agencies, they tend to put in those requirements because they may not be GIS people and they're trying to hire a GIS person. So they know, well, this certificate that they know what they're doing.
Right.
And so whenever defense is notorious for that too, you know, any kind of government, if what you're looking to do involves that, the certificates are a good idea.
Okay.
And you'll notice that, like I said, that's why I kind of encourage people to go on LinkedIn or Indeed or something and look for those job categories that you can envision yourself, even if it's not the first job you're going to get, but say, you know, I really would love to be a project manager eventually. You know, that's kind of where I see myself, the path I see myself going, or I'd really like to be a software developer and that's where I see myself going. Then you can kind of get an idea of what they're asking for in those, and you're not going to be able to get them all right now, but at least you kind of have a path as to what they're going to be expecting you learn on the job and in school.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Jessica, can you clarify, because I think some folks, even myself actually, just what a GISP is exactly?
Well, I don't know all the requirements that it takes, but a GISP, my understanding is that it is a test. You know, it's a certification that you take that you are demonstrating proficiency in whatever technologies they're testing you on. And I'm sure you can find a list somewhere on that. I don't have that. I don't know. But I know that usually, for instance, it will include a little Python and JavaScript. Like if you have a GISP, you probably have the base fundamentals that a GIS specialist would need.
Cool. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
I have a question. My name is Kirsten. And kind of going off of what you were just talking about, I have academic experience in GIS, undergrad, and now my master's experience. But I've never had any professional GIS experience, and I'm right now in the process of looking for internships, applying internships and entry-level jobs. Do you have any tips or ideas of how I could sell myself through my resume and cover letter by, I guess, using my education experience since I don't have that professional experience?
Yes. What I usually recommend is, so you kind of want to put your education experience like your work history. You know, you've seen traditional resumes, and that is, you know, start with your name and address kind of thing, and then a summary of what you want to do, a skills section, which is where you're going to list what skills you've learned in school, and that is both, it's technical, it's communication if you're a really good researcher or you have excellent knowledge of a particular the wetlands or something, you know, that you've been studying. So you want to kind of put keywords in there in terms of this is who I am technically, and then you can go on to experience, and your experience rather than employment will be academic. But you can list projects there, link to whatever work you can if there's something online that you can link to. So those are a good way to start. A resume is not ever really your friend. It's never a great way to sell yourself. The first thing you want to do is really do these things like you're doing now and getting in front of professionals. And if you're in a community that has some GIS groups or holds a conference now and then, to go introduce yourself. And then and then LinkedIn, you know, if you don't have those kind of local things, but somewhere where you can connect with professionals and really put your face out there before you apply if you can, and follow up on a resume with a phone call if you can. Those kinds.
Oh.
I'm getting a call.
Oh, I was like, oh,
sorry. Someone's calling me on my cell phone. So.
Would a good way be to, like, say I did a project in school, can I kind of like incorporate and try to make a similarity with what they're expressing on their job description? Kind of like, this project, well, what I did during this project is something that I think could help me with what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. Right. That's exactly what you want to try to draw the line. And, you know, a lot of times too, your resume is going to an HR person first, depending on the size of the company. So if it's not a real small company and they don't understand what you do. And so drawing those lines for them is very important, both in a cover letter and in your resume. And when I say put that skills section on the top of your resume, that's really important. But when you describe your project down below, don't forget to say how you use those skills. What did you do with the technology? That, you know, why do you know ArcGIS so well, and did you use MicroStation or whatever you did? So people tend to do that. They either list it all at once, it's just this big gobbledygook list, which you do want the list because it's the way they kind of identify, okay, this is a technical person and this is somebody that makes sense for what we're trying to hire, and then they read on. But you want to tell them how you know those things. And then list it like a job description, like your project, and this is what I did. And daily I had to monitor this, and, you know, just like you would if you were working somewhere and you were listing your duties.
Hey, Andrew, I had a question more so directed towards you. Do we have any resources at the university to get help on our resumes and cover letters? Like, if we brought in like our resume and a cover letter, could we get some critique from somebody on this?
Yeah, the person that would be doing that is, well, depending on your screen, you're looking at him. So yeah, no. Are you local to the Denver area, or are you out of state?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. Say that again.
Are you local, or are you out of state? Where are you located?
Yeah, I'm local to Denver.
Okay, so depending on your availability, we could meet in person to go over your resume. For all of you guys, you can always send me a copy of your resume to be evaluated virtually. I can do a screencast, you know, articulating my feedback. I can do, you know, track changes and comments in your document, send it back to you, and we can exchange emails that way. But yes, I have like handouts and physical resources I can send you, but otherwise I am the resource for resume review and feedback. So please don't hesitate to do that. And I can share my contact information with you if you don't already have it.
And we offer that as well on our website. If it's probably not as hands-on as the universities would be, but once you go through that process, if you want another look at it, we're pretty general in the fact that, yeah, for now this looks good, and then if we were talking to you about a particular position, we may suggest more things, but we'll just let you know if it's just a mess in terms of, I just don't even understand what you're trying to do here, you know, what you're trying your goal is, I guess, then we'll let you know that. But we're kind of surface level when we first get your resume, and then we do more in depth if we're talking about a particular position.
And Jessica, do you, when you are evaluating a candidate's resume, does that also include cover letters, or do you not recommend cover letters, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, they can include a cover letter. Again, we usually want those tailored to the position. We usually just keep your resume, and then we will, once we feel like we have a fit, because we're limited, because we're just limited to the companies we're working with at any given time.
Right.
But if we're talking to you about a particular role, we'll let you know, okay, this is really what the position is. Why don't you write something that kind of draws those parallels? And then we go from there. But it's a free, it's a free service. You can upload it easily, and somebody will get back to you on it. Probably me.
Hey, this is Jordan. Hey, Andrew, are we going to have her information to also, send a resume if we wanted to, for instance?
Yes. I'm happy to get information, and it's all over. It's geosearch.com is the website. So my email address will be on there too. But I'm on LinkedIn if anybody wants to connect, those kind of things. I'm totally open to that.
Cool. We also have another question from Rodney about, and I don't know if you would know the answer to this question, but do you have any idea about like the cost for the GISP test, and or how it may differ from an Esri certification, or if you evaluate them differently?
I don't know anything about the cost, but I do think the GISP is, my understanding is it's more general. So there's going to be more technologies, and an ESRI certification is going to be particularly about their software. And you can find, like I said, I think they have hundreds, but now and then, like there'll be like an Esri certified hacker, or those kinds of things, and those are for usually the gold partners or the ESRI partners. If you're working for somebody like that, or you want to, a lot of times they're going to be the ones. I rarely see those asked for in a job description, but it can make you more marketable for a particular niche. Once you do define kind of what you want to do, you can get some extra education there and just make yourself a little better than everybody else.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Angela. Hi.
Hi.
I have a question about online portfolios. I've seen that they are required for some positions, but I haven't seen them too often in descriptions. Do you have any insight as to how necessary having an online portfolio is? I
think that's again going to be your sector, because I can't even remember when I've ever been asked for one from my candidates that I'm presenting. So it may be something that's. Do you have a particular domain that you're looking to get into?
Yeah, like environmental sciences, conservation.
Yeah, and that may be more because it's more about the research. It's more about the projects you've done, the studies you've done. So that may be why. So I think it'd be a really good idea if you can start building that. Mm-hmm. That'll never hurt you in that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Jessica, this is Kevin. Thanks for taking time to do this. I've got to kind of like to get your impression about people who are coming from other industries and bringing a kind of a body of experience with them into, like to pursue into the geospatial area. How would you suggest presenting ourselves that way? Like I'm coming from another industry, but I've got some, fairly strong project management skills, communication, public speaking, logistics, organization type skills.
Well, depending on where you come from, you may come from an industry that's utilizing GIS, and that background, just the knowledge of how it works, can be really helpful. But even if you're not, definitely tout those skills of project management and communication skills. And I've given presentations, and I've attended conferences, and I've, done proposals, or whatever the type of work that you did before. That all is relevant in your history. And again, apply it to whatever type of position you're trying to find in the domain you're looking for. And then you'll kind of see in those job descriptions, yep, they're really asking for Excel skills. Well, I used to do that all the time. So I have I have really great Excel skills from when I was an accountant or whatever. So, all of those kind of, I keep getting calls. My daughter is calling me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, thanks
Does
for that
that
response.
answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah, partly, and also, and it's something I'm going to have to go search and look for, maybe talk to you offline, and that is how to seek out those positions in geospatial industry that are looking for those skills, right? The job description may not really call that out. I don't know to what extent it would.
Right. There's project managers within geospatial, and there's people that give public presentations all the time. So I don't know exactly what type of position are you looking to do?
Well, I think my background would transfer best into a project management type of position, but I would like to apply the analyst skills that we learned, going through the program. So kind of both. I think where I would have maybe an advantage over someone who's got a really strong in the industry experience, like a Python programmer, let's say, or a database administrator or something, is bringing some of those other logistical type skills that they may not have focused on.
Right.
So I need to put those, front and center.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, you're still going to need the technical skills that they have depending on the position. But those things will set you above and beyond. And it used to be, when I first started this, 20 years ago, it used to be we couldn't find a programmer who could talk to a client. I mean, it was like you were either a programmer or you dealt with clients. And now if that's what they really want. They want people that can go on site to, if they're a consulting company, for instance, a geospatial consulting company, and they're working with utilities, and they want you to go on site with that utilities and show them how powerful the GIS is and what it can do, and help them troubleshoot any issues they're having with their workflows or whatever. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to understand the technical portion, but really have those client skills too.
Okay.
And the same goes for project management. You have to be able to run schedules and budgets and those kind of things, as well as understand what the project goal is within GIS.
Okay, thanks.
Jessica, is there I'm curious if there is a common mistake or like a common mistake that you see candidates or applicants make, either in the resume or application or interview process that could be easily fixed, perhaps?
Well, I guess there's some obvious ones. This looks like a pretty well-educated group, but there are those who I've had, people show up in shorts to interviews, and or who have, definitely capitalized, your email communication, write that as if it was formal writing when you're communicating with a prospective employer over email. Mm-hmm. So it has to be a lot more formal than maybe even internally in a job. I know internally in companies, it's not always done that way. But when you're applying for something, you have to always assume they're looking at what you're doing. So they're evaluating your written communication skills. Any kind of social media, of course, be careful what you post, kind of things that you're not, gonna be really off-putting. I try. I'm an advocate on this end to try to stop the whole let's stalk their Facebook and see if they're a good employee movement, but I still also talk to everybody looking for jobs. You know, it has to be two ways. It's like, you know, I talk to my kids all the time too, like, just keep it, you know, keep it cool on there, and that's good. So that can rule somebody out that they didn't otherwise would have been very qualified. And I think responsiveness too is really important in terms of, you know, timely getting back to them, timely if they're asking for an interview, and being able to, you know, do that within a reasonable amount of time. Or if you are really out of the country for the next month, just explaining that well and letting them know.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, also Rodney has a question. Are there GIS positions that specialize in the long-term preservation of GIS data?
That's a good question. There are companies who brag to me that they have all these rolled up maps in their basement, and, you know, their whole town's history is in their, you know, their one little mom and pop shop basement of an aerial Photoshop or something. So I know that this is special to the whole profession. So I've got to think there is, but I don't know what it would be. You may need to look at, you know, something like archiving or records. There was a company one time out of Texas, that's all they did was records. So it might be something like that, geospatial records. But I don't have a title for you, sorry.
Thank you. What about, is there it probably depends on the client. Is there a typical interview process that you see often, like general, behavioral, then technical, or what do you see kind of consistently across clients in terms of their process for interviewing?
So typically what you'll, you know, if you get an application, you'll apply for a position. And usually, even if you're introduced online, you know, or, you know, maybe you're introduced at a conference and they say, yeah, we're really interested, they'll still have you apply online. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to be discouraged when they do that. That's typically because most companies these days have an applicant tracking system, and that actually helps you not get lost in the process for the most part, you know, especially if it's a larger company.
Right. And
some of it's compliance depending on the the domain they're in. And then if they're interested, they'll typically set up an interview via the telephone. It can be a screening call with like somebody like me or somebody internally that's a recruiter, and they may know nothing about what you do. Again, they're looking for communication skills. They're looking for, you know, is this person easy to talk to? Or do they sound like they know what they're doing? Some of them really understand the technology, and then some of them have no idea. And they're just, you know, they recruit for GIS analysts, and they recruit for truck driver, and they, you know, pilots, and they just, you know, depend. If it's a huge company, that's how it is. So they're just kind of reading the job description and saying, are these the things you have, and what salary do you need, and, you know, are you a U.S. citizen, and, you know, the things that they need to know to move forward. And then once you're passed along to the hiring manager, you know, it's typically a telephone interview, but if you're local, a lot of times it'll just go right to a personal interview. So I like to tell people, you know, I get a lot of, you know, I'd love to be in Colorado, and Colorado is a great place for geospatial work. But in terms of an entry level and a first position, if you can find some companies that are around you, your chances go up immensely. That you'll be able to get in front of them, that you'll be able to have a conversation and get the position, you know, or at least get that internship or whatever. If you're applying for internships across the nation, you know, and there's 10 next door, they're just not going to go they're not going to spread the net that wide. So if your goal is to relocate, and that's kind of your goal is, you know, I'd love to do this in, you know, my primary goal is Colorado, or, you know, Seattle, or wherever you're trying to go, I would get the experience first where you are, if possible, and then move from there. And then you're going to have companies that are interested in hiring you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jessica, I had another question for you. Where do you see the industry going in terms of trends in the industry? Is it more moving GIS to online web applications and ArcGIS Enterprise, or what are some of the trends you see in the industry?
Yeah, I think the enterprise is big, and I don't know a lot about like when we're looking at the environmental sector, for instance, that is one vein that we don't do a whole lot of work in, and that's because there is so much federal and state government involved, and they're not usually hiring recruiters. That's not usually part of their budget or practice. But in terms of the commercial sector outside of government, it is definitely moving to enterprise, to online and web development. That's why you're seeing so much of that demand for that scripting, is because so much of the industry are companies who provide professional services to the government or to the utility company or to the, the insurance company or whoever the client is. So there's just markets. They're working with oil and gas. It's actually a GIS Esri Gold partner or something that's doing all their GIS work. They're outsourcing it to that. And so that's why they want people who can communicate, who can go to client sites, who can do some configuration and installation of software, train people on it, have a passion for it, show how powerful it is, show what kind of business results they can get from it. So that kind of expertise and just the love of the actual technology and the results it can bring is really where the trend is going to me. It's like a value added more than just I sit and use ArcGIS. I understand it and I can show you how this is just going to transform your business, or we're going to get, so much more energy out for less cost in your city or whatever. So.
Right. Okay.
So does GeoSearch, I'm looking at your website here, do you accept resumes, or do you accept like a pool of names and people that we can get involved with that way and kind of get into your pipeline and database?
Yeah, so you can register on our website free. There's never a charge to job seekers. So if you go in and you go to job seeker part of it, it'll lead you through kind of a register here, and it'll set you up for an agent for your state, meaning you'll get an email from us if we post something within your state automatically. And then if you want to set up other things, like I want to see every entry-level position nationwide, or I want to see all the project management positions or whatever. So you can set up your own agents and we'll get in touch with you. We are one resource. I always want to stress that, because we're one resource for you to network with, but we don't go out and hunt jobs for you. We actually do the opposite. We find employees for the employer. So although we're a resource and we can look at your resume, and we're always happy to answer questions about the positions we have on our website, we are one resource that, we don't want you to just rely on us. We have a lot of people that are like, why haven't you found me a job yet? And it's really a two-way street with us. It's like, if you see something, call us, gosh, I'm perfect for this. I live in this area and I would love to learn more about it. So, we want to hear from you if you see things like that. Okay.
Yeah. But of course, if we're not there, then we're not on the list of people you're looking at too when something does come in. So.
Right. Yeah. So we do search that database, and you are notified of the things that you'd sign up to be notified for. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
You mentioned something about like conferences, professional conferences, and for these students that are graduate level students, that's something that they hear, or at least I hope they hear a lot from us here at DU, is you should be attending professional conferences and or joining professional associations.
Right.
Are there any specific ones that you recommend or that come to mind?
Gosh, I think that probably the ones to join, I guess they would be, because we have like GIS communities here in Colorado, like we have GIS in the Rockies, for instance. Mm-hmm. I think there's communities that have that everywhere. I've been to a little one in Indiana that had it. I just went to I was asked to speak in North Carolina for a community group like that. And I don't know what they're always called, but I would just look up GIS user groups in whatever city you're in, and they, you can find that. And then if you go, Esri actually has education outreach too, which you probably know about, but I don't know if they do. And they may have some resources on their website about, different states and their organizations. And some of them are online, and then some of them actually have conferences. And then the ESRI user conferences are always good. ILMF, which is International LiDAR, is it LiDAR Mapping Forum or something? That's a good one, because that's a little different perspective. Those are the guys that are data collecting with sensors and processing LiDAR and getting it ready for the GIS. And it's a good sector. I mean, it's a booming area. So a whole nother layer of the map. They're the ones that are doing all that data collection. So those kind of things to look for. And then any kind of software that you're interested in, like ERDOS or, all the different softwares will have their own kind of user groups and their own conferences. So
excellent. So, and to that
there
point,
may be some for like environmental or something, like specific ones.
To that point, I found I had good success looking at meetup.com. You can go on there, and they're actually GIS meetup groups of different types, Python users groups and stuff, all in Meetup. It's pretty easy to find.
Cool.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And LinkedIn, I think you can find quite a few too. There's like women in GIS, and there's, different interests within it. So, and some of them might meet in different locations.
Excellent.
Do you know of any other GIS recruiting resources like the one that you're involved at work for that we could also get our resume out and into their database?
There's a GIS, it's gjc.org, which is a GIS jobs clearinghouse, I think is what that stands for. And they're out of a university actually, but they usually have a lot of good postings, and a lot of what they advertise is entry level too, because they're pretty much free to post there. So a lot of companies will post their entry level stuff there. And then there is GITA, G-I-T-A. If you haven't heard of that, I think they have some. And I get an email from gisjobs.com, which I'm not exactly sure. I know they do a newsletter. I don't exactly know how active they are in recruiting, but I don't know if you can register or not as a job seeker, but they do advertise jobs a lot.
Okay.
So, and then having your resume on Indeed, if you haven't done that, is a big one too.
So assuming that some of us do need to enhance our programming skills, let's say, and we go start taking some courses, how would you recommend presenting that? Like, I'm not a programmer, but working toward XYZ degree, or what would you recommend?
Well, I think if you get if you take a class within Python, for instance, Python and ArcGIS or something, I think you can list that then as a skill. Some resumes people put, I'm an intermediate, ArcGIS user, I'm intermediate this and ArcMap, I'm great at Excel, and I'm a beginner Python user, and you can do it that way too if you'd like to represent it. The main thing is looking at, you're going to be kind of looking for those GIS technician or analyst roles that may not be full-time, you're not going to be doing it primarily, but you're going to get more practice that way. So just having exposure to it, understanding it, being able to be kind of maybe dangerous with it is good. That's what they're looking for at first.
So you look at a lot of resumes, right? But you don't see a lot of cover letters?
I see both. I see both. Yeah.
How creative can you get with a cover letter within the GIS industry? Because
I love that. It really depends. If you're interested in, I think it definitely needs to be, that's another domain thing. The software side, you can get as creative as you want. Those people, the consultants, those people are go-getters. They are creative. They're always reinventing their business. It's really it's very competitive. So those are the kinds of things. I think if you're, maybe engineering, you might have to be a little less feisty, but still, humor and all of that is still fine. It's just that you just want to make sure that it's speaking to their professional environment. So just depending on.
Okay. It just depends on where you're applying and kind of getting a sense for their personality as a company, maybe.
Right.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And the role you're going to too makes a difference, kind of, because you would be, especially if you are looking for, maybe a client-facing or an account manager role, you want to be able to show that personality, show those skills of connection, both written and verbal, and written is your first chance. So that's a good idea.
And Jessica, for those that are maybe, building some experience that, are either career changers or might still be fairly entry level, am I correct in understanding that coordinator and analyst and specialist might be those kind of like more entry level type titles? Or I guess it probably depends on the company and the job per se.
I know they keep playing around with the names all the time forever, but I think GIS technician is still fairly common. Geospatial technician you'll see a lot, and then yes, analyst, specialist. Typically, to me, and again, you're totally right. It depends on who's writing it, but most of the time, if you see specialist, that's where you're going to see that requirement for Python and JavaScript. It's usually more of a in-depth person who might be configuring the software. Mm-hmm. And then the analysis, you're going to see more maybe SQL and more database kind of skills that you're looking for there. What else do I see these days? It's like, I'll see geospatial engineer. That usually is something that typically means they want a little programming, but not always. I just saw cartographer. We just got cartographer listed with us again, and that's a defense contractor, and it's so funny. I haven't seen that. I remember 10 years or more ago, I was at a conference, and some kind of highfalutin guy who didn't want to talk about my recruiting services was like, yeah, well, we don't hire cartographers. And I'm like, well, I don't recruit cartographers. I guess I do, though, because it's on our website right now, cartographer.
So what sectors do you see being kind of strong in terms of hiring for geospatial positions? I know that the government is a lot, and you don't necessarily get involved so much there, but on the private sector.
Right, because most of the private sector that we work with, their client is the government, or their client are, large banks or insurance or utilities. So keep that in mind, that just because it's a private company, it doesn't mean you're not doing that kind of work, because most of this stuff is outsourced. And what were you asking me? That
which sector shows the strongest growth?
I would say utilities is huge. Energy is coming back. That was always a big sector, was oil and gas. And that goes hand in hand with that environmental piece too. Although, some geospatial analysts working within environmental are internal to oil and gas, and others are external. They're making, assessments on our environment all the time. But that energy sector was a big employer, those environmental focused people. And so that was kind of awful when a lot of those people were getting laid off, but it sounds like that's coming back. It's not booming yet. Utilities is really hot. And I think that has a lot to do with just our national grid and usage and being more efficient, and solar and wind and all of that kind of stuff coming up. So, and then we have transportation is always a really big sector. In terms of, and that can come within local government, but there's also companies that just focus on the location data, just do, how we power our iPhones to know that there's traffic on the interstate or whatever. So a lot of that is all geospatial, and they're coming from those companies you see on your cell phone.
Do you get feedback from the people that you place, either good or bad, about where they ended up?
Great question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to single out a client, because you probably, but like sectors and types of jobs, those two things. Like, oh, I got this, technician job, and it's just not enough responsibility, or whatever it is. What type of feedback are you getting?
Well, I don't have a particular sector that's like that necessarily. I think that is very company specific. And so some companies run their company where, you're doing a kind of a pigeonholed job. And that is a lot of times those really big ones. A lot of times this is what you do every day, and this is what we want you to get good at. And you may or may not have bandwidth to go outside of that at all or learn other things. Some of the bigger companies are really awesome at that. I hear great things about like AECom, for instance, that they send their people all the time to learn, get new certifications and that kind of thing. And then, but I think I get great feedback from a lot of the smaller ones too that do the same thing, and those people are meant to wear different hats, and they need them to do different things every day. And so it kind of depends on your personality and your personality profile and what you like. Do I want to get good at one thing, and I really want to be the best at it, or do I really like my day to be diverse, and I don't need to be, the guru at this, but I would love to get my hands in it. So it just depends on you and where you want to take your career.
Okay.
I think we probably have time for maybe one more question. And just keep in mind, if you have other questions we didn't get to today, you can always send those to me, and I'll send them to Jessica. Or it sounds like your information is readily available on the Geo.
Yeah, and I'm just Jessica@geosearch.com is my email.
Excellent. So do we have one more, or are we?
What?
Okay. Well,
Oh,
yes, Jordan?
the email? Again?
Oh, Jessica?
Jessica Touchard.
.com.
Oh, here, it's Jessica@geosearch.com. I just sent it in the chat.
All right.
So.
Oh, okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking their time to be a part of this, and for just being genuinely curious, and exhibiting professionalism, and being comfortable trying this. And Jessica, I want to thank you so much for being willing to share your expertise with our students here. And obviously, I'll be following up with you, and I'll be following up with all the students. But I really appreciate everybody's time for this.
Thanks, Andrew.
Say hello,
Andrew and Jessica.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
And Andrew, I think this is a good forum. I would encourage you in university to continue. I think I've used Zoom a lot in the past in my work, and I think it's a good forum for things like this. So yeah, I encourage you to continue.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad that it was a good experience for you. So we'll continue to work with this, and hopefully I'll be seeing you all again, in a different capacity.
All right, great. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.